What's up, guys? George Balekji here with Boston has entered the chat. But hey, check out the latest episode of Foxborough Rush. Mock Draft 5.0 is officially out. Our last full Patriots 7-round mock before the draft this Thursday night. Keegan Stiefel and I going with the Swiss Army knife at 4 overall. And then you'll see we're taking a little risk on a tackle, but someone we think can pan out at the left tackle spot. That's Foxborough Rush, wherever you get your podcasts, wherever you watch them as well. Now, let's get to the chat. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in.
Here we go.
George Balekji with Travis Thomas on Boston has entered the chat. T, how we doing, man?
I'm doing great. I am so ready for this draft. I really am.
Just 4 days away.
Yeah, mock drafts and pontificating and trying to figure out, well, what if this team does this? Well, what if they trade here? I'm ready for the real thing. Real deal, Holyfield.
I can't wait for it. I'll still be mocking all the way to the end.
I know you will.
Watching film, doing my self-scouting that I do.
I know.
But not as good as some of the guys you'll hear from in this episode. We got Connor Rogers, Taylor Kyles, Trevor Sikkema, 3 different NFL draft experts. We've brought them on Foxborough Rush and the chat to tell us about who the Patriots should take at 4 and what they should do overall.
Yep.
This is special. We got, episode on this Monday.
Yep.
Best stuff from our NFL draft experts we've had on the show. Perfect primer for NFL Draft Week. Check it out right here. This would be a great convo. You guys just recently, you and Connor Rogers on Stock Exchange, did your own first and second round mock. So God bless you guys for going 2 full rounds. But it was awesome listening to that. I want to take you through the hypothetical. Let's say something insane happens. And let's say we see 3 quarterbacks go in the top 3. Jackson Dart earns his way to not just move in front of Shedeur Sanders, but someone takes Shedeur at 2 and then Jackson Dart at 3 or vice versa. Cam Ward goes. The New England Patriots, as we focus on this pod, at number 4, they have Will Campbell, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter sitting in front of them. Ooh. You are the man that puts in the final card. You have the final say. You and Mike Vrabel are in a great relationship. What are you doing, Trevor?
Yeah, we're buds. I mean, I've seen Mike Vrabel down at the Senior Bowl. I mean, I've seen him walking around and everything, said what's up to him before. He has no idea who I am. But, I've said what's up to him in passing before, so that makes total sense that we would have that relationship and he would give me that sort of power. It would be very intriguing to trade back. I would have the phones open for probably 15 straight minutes, the entire time that I would be allowed to have there. And my phones would be open and I would listen to all sorts of offers. I mean, I think that Carolina jumping up from number 8 could make sense. I think that, certainly maybe the New York Jets want to do the same thing, make a statement, go up and get the player that they want. The Chicago Bears, if they want to get aggressive. You're talking all these teams probably on the tail end of the top 10. I don't know if you want to get too much further past the top 10, honestly, because New England still needs to get a pretty good player. I'd think about trading down, but ultimately, I don't know, especially because it wouldn't be for a quarterback. I don't think we would get to a price that I'd be happy with taking over drafting Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter is my number 1 overall player that I have in this class. He's just a rare athlete. I mean, even beyond the fact that he played both sides of the ball and he played them so well over the last couple of years at Jackson State and then Colorado. It's just that he's the type of athlete that he is, the playmaker mentality that he have. We hear that from just some of the greatest athletes of all time. Sometimes, of course, they have to be extremely talented, but it's then that mental ability and how they process the game and just who they are as a playmaker that puts them in those top tier categories as some of the best that we can name. And I feel as though Travis has that sort of mentality to him. So I would not be passing on this player for much. And in New England's case, if he got to number 4, I'd be picking Travis Hunter for them.
Trev, I'm with you. You are just preaching to the choir, my friend. I've been all over Travis Hunter to the Patriots. I hope it happens on draft night. But I have to ask you, what's up with the Jackson Dart stuff? First of all, I think Shedeur Sanders, let me start there. He's being disrespected throughout this entire process. I still think the gap between Cam Ward and him is not that far apart, personally. I know Cam Ward's a little bit better of an athlete, but I think Shedeur is going to be a really good high-end pro quarterback. And this Jackson Dart stuff, who I do like, but it's still a system there at Ole Miss. What am I missing? I guess 2-parter. Why Jackson Dart is rising up, and also why is Shedeur continually getting disrespected throughout this process? What am I missing, Trev?
So I'll start with Jackson Dart. And Jackson Dart to me kind of feels like, hey, we just need to talk about the quarterback position. Now, me saying that feels more insulting than it probably should be. Because like you said, there are things that he brings to the table that you could like. He's got a baseball background to him. He's a very natural athlete. He plays with a lot of moxie, a lot of confidence, and I've loved him in Lane Kiffin's system. Now, he teaches him how to read defenses a little bit, but it's more of, hey, we're going to put this defender in conflict. Read, if they're coming up, you put it over his head. If he's staying back, you hit him underneath. And so he's got an understanding of those things, but there's some late game situations. I know everybody points to the Florida game, but there's some other games as well where he sort of struggles in those 2-minute drills, which can be not only end game situations, but also end of half situations, right? Where, okay, things might be going a little bit off script and you have to sort of be able to make a play. Sometimes he doesn't always have the best judgment there. I don't want to say that he can't get better in that area because I feel like he has over the years, but it's tough to just guarantee that that's immediately going to get better at the NFL level. So I think the reason why the NFL is trying to sort of pump him up here is, one, we know that people just need to talk about quarterbacks, and there's often more teams that need franchise caliber quarterbacks than we have the pick in draft classes. I think this is probably an example of it. There are things to like about his game. I just think it's so much more comfortably like mid to late day 2 area, right? And instead, now we've got to talk about him as a top 10 potential pick because of teams that are so desperate at quarterback. When it comes to Shedeur, I like Shedeur. I want to be very clear. My pro comp for him, he reminds me a lot of Teddy Bridgewater. And I love Bridgewater when he was coming out of Louisville. I thought that the things that he brought to the table, the ice in his veins, how he was able to read defenses, how he could stand in the pocket real tough and take hits and deliver throws, like Shedeur does a lot of those things well. But both, like Bridgewater, both are a little bit limited when it comes to escapability and mobility there. And I don't think they have elite arms. So to me, when I think of Shedeur, I think he could absolutely be a starting quarterback in the NFL, but is he going to be a tier 1, tier 2 starter? That's where you sort of lose me, or that's the highest end of his of the possibilities that we could have with Shedeur, where, again, I like him. I wouldn't be picking him in the top 5. He's another guy that, for example, Pittsburgh sitting there at 21. They kind of need a quarterback. I'd probably think about him there at 21. I'd think about him at the back end of the first round. I think about him at the beginning of the second round. But that's where I am with him. I like him as a player, but I think he is more of just like hey, he's going to be a solid starter for you at the NFL level. He'll give you some big moments, but I don't know if he has that get out of trouble type of arm talent to him. And that's what worries me taking that step to the next level in the NFL.
I like the Bridgewater comp. I want to go back to Travis Hunter since we do agree on that. So let's say Patriots take him at 4. What's your mentality of how you play this kid? Because you and I are in lockstep in terms of this team just needs playmakers, period. So are you leaning more wide receiver and then packages for him at corner, or vice versa? What are you thinking in terms of the usage if the Patriots do draft him at 4th?
So at this point in time, to be honest with you, I'd let him play both and just figure out if he can do it. Because if he can't, you can always dial it back, right? So I'd almost give him, the full buffet of show us what you could do with your talent level. But for the Patriots specifically, it is a little bit interesting. I think what you should do with Travis Hunter is play him full-time as a corner, because then you can have a handful of plays, like you mentioned, where he could play wide receiver for you. I don't really think you can do that vice versa. I don't know if you can have him be a wide receiver full time and then just say, hey, yeah, we're playing man coverage. Just go out there and cover this guy. It doesn't, the position doesn't really work like that. The defensive side of the ball doesn't really work like that, but he's a special player. So I'd probably, again, try it and let it fail before I don't try it at all. But for the Patriots, with them signing Carlton Davis and them already having Christian Gonzalez, you got a good nickel that you feel good about as well. Like, I wonder if they would just really rather have him be a playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. And I think he'd be incredibly productive. So in a vacuum, I'd rather him be a full-time starting corner with a handful of snaps at wide receiver. But for the Patriots specifically, becoming that wide receiver 1 probably has more value than saying that he's going to start for you full-time at corner.
Yeah, I love that point. And even Mike Vrabel has talked about his vision with the Carlton Davis is a cat defense. You got that cat, I got that cat.
Right.
Him and Christian Gonzalez. And if he's a full-time wide receiver, the money downs. 3rd down, 4th down, red zone. Hey, we're going to run man. You got this guy, and he's really good in the slot. So we could keep talking about Travis Hunter. I literally just tweeted out a quick mock I did myself where I got him at 4. you being at the Senior Bowl, you being at the Combine, is that a reality though? Because I just can't fathom that you, me, and Travis are talking about just gushing over Travis Hunter, and we're going to see 3 different front offices go, yeah, we'll pass on him. We'll take Cam Ward, we'll take Shador Sanders, and we'll take out. I just can't fathom that happening. From what you've heard, from what you picked up and what you see, do you think there's a real path of him falling to number 4?
I will not say that something is impossible, because every single year the NFL draft teaches me that I cannot speak in absolutes when it comes to what's going to happen on night 1 of the NFL draft. I think it's pretty unlikely, just because of what we talked about here. If we all love him so much that we'd sprint the card in at number 4 if he's on the board at number 4, you got to think these other teams would want to as well. And the only reason why, in my opinion, we're even entertaining this conversation is because of the desperate need of quarterbacks for all 3 of the teams that are picking above the Patriots. Ultimately, I think that I'm coming to grips with it could be a coin flip here, that we get 2 out of those 3 picks are going to be a quarterback selection. I think it's very unlikely still that we would get 3 out of 3 be quarterback selections. And if there is one that isn't a quarterback, whether that's the Giants or whether that's the Cleveland Browns, I think that Travis Hunter will be the pick for one of those teams. He's just too good to pass up, in my opinion. And again, you just talk about the rareness of who he is as a football player. Even for as great as I think Abdul Carter can be in the NFL, I wouldn't be passing on a player like that. So there's always a chance. There's no doubt about it. But I feel like it's pretty unlikely that all 3 teams would pass on a kid as talented as him.
I think situationally with the Giants, they took care of their front 7. They have a good defensive line. They have Malik Neighbors. They need help on the back end. Perfect thing, Travis Hunter full-time corner. You line up Travis Hunter opposite of Malik Neighbors. No matter who your quarterback is, all of a sudden, the guys that they've been in on, now they'll be coming to New York. So say it happens the way you're mapping it out, because Abdul Carter is elite, Travis Hunter is elite, Cam Ward's going to go top 3. What do you make of Will Campbell? Because he has a lot of fans inside the building in one Patriot Place, Gillette Stadium. What do you make of Will Campbell as a prospect?
I love him, man. I really do. I mean, like, just the way that this guy approaches the position, you absolutely love it. And I mean, I think that, a lot of people bring up the Joe Thomas example right? When they talk about offensive tackles who ended up being great, that didn't hit the arm length or the length thresholds. Now I want to say this right off the bat. Will Campbell's arm length and wingspan are much less than Joe Thomas's, like just right off the bat. So it's not like it's completely an apples to apples. But in his defense, the reason why Joe Thomas was able to overcome some length deficiencies for playing in the pros is how he approaches the game. Will Campbell has that. Will Campbell is cut from the same cloth in that regard, and he gets asked these questions about his arm length and everything. And the thing is I love listening to him at his podium, and I've listened to some podcasts and some other episodes where he sort of talked about the arm length, and he just goes, "You guys aren't breaking any news to me. It's not like it's like, what do you mean my arms are short? It's like he's sitting here thinking that was never the case. I mean, he knows that, and he even said, he's like, look, I don't really lose because my arms are short. I lose because of other different things. Is it an area of my game where I can say, okay, I can win with length? No, I can't, but I just have to be conscious of that. So what I'll do is I'll go into the lab and into the film room the week before I'm watching a guy, and I'll say, okay, does this guy like to win with length? Because if he does, this is how I need to disrupt him. If he doesn't win with length, okay, then I don't need to worry about it as much. So the thing about it is he is so high football IQ that he can mitigate a lot of those lack of length reps that you would see. And so to me, he is somebody that he is a true football player in how he approaches the game, how he studies the game. Obviously, he's a great athlete from what we saw at the Combine as well. I think he could play tackle in the NFL, and I think if he's not going to play tackle, he'd be an all-pro caliber type of guard for you. I've even talked about him potentially playing center and being an all-pro center if that's something that he is comfortable with. So I really think the world of Will Campbell, and whether or not you draft him at 4 simply comes down to, well, if he's a guard, do you think it's worth it for you at number 4? If you're just trying to draft the best offensive lineman, he's my top offensive lineman in this class.
If Travis Hunter falls to the Patriots at 4, does Stephon Diggs change that they would draft Travis Hunter?
I don't think Stephon Diggs really affects their plans. Again, I think he's just a safety blanket, and he gives them one more guy that they could say, if we went into battle tomorrow, you're probably looking at Kendrick Bourne, Demario Douglas, and Stephon Diggs as your starters. But I still think they need another young impact player. And this is a new regime, so we don't know how exactly they feel about Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, although I'm sure they'll still get opportunities. So I think that Travis Hunter should be a lock. if he's there for the Patriots because he is a truly special talent that could make Drake May better. He makes Christian Gonzalez better on defense. Really rare prospect too. As a cornerback, that's where I think he should be long-term. Short-term, I think he could be a receiver because the Patriots don't have a lot of talent there. But I also think that if you play him on the other side of the ball, you have a potentially generational Hall of Fame tandem with Christian Gonzalez, who can match up with anybody, and Travis Hunter, who whenever the ball is coming his way, he's a bigger threat to catch it than the guy he's covering, which is not something you can say about many defensive backs in history, especially guys with the coverage ability that Travis Hunter has, and being someone who's such a good teammate, knows how to take care of himself, like checks every box that you want from a character perspective. So if Travis Hunter's there, unless someone's like, I'm throwing 2 first-round picks and a second rounder or something real sweet, that kind of deal your way, I don't think you even blink. It's Travis Hunter, especially a dual threat. Mike Vrabel, game recognized game.
I don't know if those 2 firsts and a second would get me to pass up on Travis Hunter either. The need at wide receiver. So before I get to your vision, because I love that you brought up, I see him cornerback long term, and it makes sense. If he gets drafted by the Pats, I think the bigger need for them with him, and because of Carlton Davis, is wide receiver. How would he now slot into this offense? Is he the guy downfield, takes the top off of defense, while Stephon Diggs is more underneath, intermediate, short route type of receiver?
Travis Hunter has the most juiced of almost everybody on your team, if not everyone on your team. So, yeah, I do think that while I think he's better at the Z, like Josh McDaniels' offense, unless you are a Devontae Adams where you can just feast on one-on-one matchups, I think that the Z is where you want to be because you're off the line of scrimmage. You get to get moved around in motion. That gives you advantages, easier releases, and that's where I think Diggs will thrive. But that's where I think Travis Hunter's an absolute cheat code. I also think that Travis Hunter right now needs to put on some weight because you saw in college, if he's running just a go route and he's outside the numbers, he gets bullied to the sideline sometimes, would get pushed out of bounds all the way. So I think you want to keep him out of those situations. But right now, this is an offense that's built to be very condensed. So not a lot of guys outside the numbers, period. You're going to have to do it at some point. And I'm sure like you got Matt Collins, Kendrick Bourne can do some of that, Kayshon Boutte, even Jalen Polk. You've got guys that can moonlight on the outside, but the prime position in this offense, I think, will be Z. I think we'll see Diggs, and if Travis Hunter joins, I think he'll be used there. But Hunter would definitely get the majority of those ISO situations.
I love that vision for him on offense. All right, so your vision, though, you said it to him. You think he could be a long-term Pro Bowl caliber, all-pro, maybe Hall of Fame cornerback. Maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know. But, hey,
I don't throw that around often, but I think that's fair because he's special.
So what's your vision with him then? You draft him. It's your team. It's year 1, and it is with the Patriots. This will be year 1, and then year 5, year 10. What's your vision with Travis Hunter overall in the NFL?
I'd like to see him stick to one side of the ball on at least like 70% of snaps, right? Because he's still young, needs to adjust to the NFL game. And especially on offense, like, yes, you are dictating, but at least on defense, you can say, hey, you're playing man coverage on third downs, right? There's no mystery. It's man, everybody knows what we do. You just got to lock the guy down. Travis says, okay, I'm going to stare at his hips, go where he goes, be an athlete. Once he declares the route, I got eyes on the ball. He'll take his lumps, but I just think that's a little more simple than on offense where, again, you are dictating the terms, but you need chemistry with Drake May. Also, Travis Hunter wasn't really active in wide receiver meetings. Like, he was getting hand signals from Shedeur Sanders on the field to know what route to run. He has a long way to go in terms of being a wide receiver. On both sides of the ball, he's got a long way to go. But I think early on, again, the Patriots have the most glaring need at wide receiver because you've got Gonzo, because you've got Carlton Davis. Mm-hmm. So I'd like him to get that rapport with Drake May early on, maybe be featured in a J.C. Jackson kind of role where, like, early on when they were stacked at corner with Jason McCourty, obviously Stephon Gilmore, it was more obvious passing situations. They'd kind of mix him in so he didn't have to play the run. That's what I'd like to see Travis Hunter do early on. After a year, 2 years, once the young guys hopefully step up, the wide receiver room looks a little more talented, a little more experienced. That's where I'd like you to say, okay, now, Travis, we're going to put more on your plate. You're going to be more of a package player on offense, but we want you to focus on defense because imagine Keon White and Milton Williams are breathing down your neck, and you have to choose between throwing a Christian Gonzalez on one outside spot or Travis Hunter on the other. I don't like those odds, and that scares me a lot more than Travis Hunter at wide receiver, as much as that is also a scary thing to think about.
That sounds like a lot of sacks, a lot of turnovers. And that's what the Patriots defense certainly needs. All right, so taking a look again, number 4. I know one tackle. He's a tackle right now. You're big on Armand Membu. Why do you like the right tackle right now out of Missouri?
Because one, we know that he's a tackle. Whether he's on the right side or the left side, yes, we'll figure that out at some point. And I think that's for teams to do their research and see if he'll be comfortable. Because everybody's different. Some guys, it's just like, it's like wiping with the other hand. Some guys, it's like, yeah, I can do it. It's really not that big of a deal. So it's going to be up to the teams to decide. But when I look at Membu, one, he was a more explosive athlete than Will Campbell, who obviously everyone's penciling into that number 4 spot. And he's 20 pounds heavier. Armand Membu's 330 pounds and a ridiculous athlete on top of being a very refined pass protector. Now, he plays on a side where he doesn't face as many premier rushers. That needs to be taken into consideration. But in the 5-6 games that I watched, I didn't see any truly egregious losses. So I didn't see him shoot his hands, get knocked down, and then there's a clear path to the quarterback. I did see that with Will Campbell more than I wanted to. And while we could talk about the arm length thing, I know that's going to be a separate discussion that we're going to get into. But Armand Membu doesn't have a lot of physical attributes that worry you. He's a little short for the position, but he's wide, he's bulky, and he has adequate arms, like 33 and a half inches, which is more than okay. So when you put all that together, try him at left tackle. If he doesn't work out, okay, you have a right tackle to take over for Morgan Moses and someone who's more talented than a Caden Wallace, who also has guard flexibility at this stage of his career probably, unless he obviously finds some way to get on the field at one of the tackle spots this year. So I just think Armand Membu comes with a lot fewer concerns, and he still addresses a pretty significant position of need.
Yeah, and he'll be 21 his rookie season, like actually turning 21. Really raw. Watch him on film too. Really fluid mover. Like, there are guys that can glide and mirror edge rushers. That dude just like absolutely slides across the field to his right, to his left laterally. Like, just the fluid movement he has. You mentioned 6'4", 330, and with his, 34-inch vertical I have it here, 9 foot 7-inch broad, and then he just went up to the bench and just did 31 reps and was like, all right, guys, have a good day. I see it, and I get it. Yeah, right, there's a 6'4" talk, but at 330, there's, in a way, it sounds like he has less red flags. And a Will Campbell where, and I'll ask this too, you can, come back to me on what I'm saying with Membu, but also there's that but what is Will Campbell? And we don't know.
Yeah, so the thing with Will Campbell is that we talk about the arm length, but it's also wingspan, right? So arm length obviously is important because offensive line play is like boxing. Reach is important. If I can hit you before you can even get close enough to make contact with me, I'm going to win that battle more times than not. Now, there's one end of the spectrum where you can be Vidarian Lowe, where his arms are so long, they're actually a disadvantage because if you're shooting 2 hands and they get knocked down and you're not even close to the guy, it's really hard to recover. You basically already lost the rep. But if you're a Will Campbell and your arms aren't as short, it just means that that's a little bit closer the other guy can get to you and try to make a move. Now, in college, that's fine. Like, you're in the SEC going up against some really talented players, but you're going to be seeing Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, the best of the best on planet Earth, where they check the mental box, so they're just as smart, if not smarter than you, more technically refined, and they're more athletic. If someone checks all the boxes, I'm sorry, brother, you're at a disadvantage, right? Because you don't really have an edge anymore. At least with Membu, you don't see those physical attributes where you're like, yeah, man, against the real freaks of nature, I'm sorry, you're just kind of going to lose the battle before it's even won. There are things where you can make up for it, right? Will Campbell has great feet. He's got really patient and technique sound hands. I think he's going to be a very good tackle if he wants to stay there. But I think he's going to be a great guard. And even when you look at the way that these two guys lose, with Membu, he usually loses against speed to power, where guys get ahead of steam, they get into his chest, and because sometimes he lets guys initiate the contact, he ends up getting pushed back even though he's a bigger guy. Will Campbell's much better against power. That's something he worked on throughout his career. But because of the arms, he struggles to his corners. Because if he misses, the guy's already so close, they can kind of initiate their move. And he's also not quite explosive enough relative to a Membu to recover quickly. So if I'm an offensive tackle, you don't want to lose regardless, but Will Campbell will lose in a way where he has no shot at recovering, whereas Membu will get pushed back, but at least can somewhat stand his ground and give the quarterback room to operate. So I'm basically splitting hairs because these are both fantastic players and both guys have concerns. My personal preference, I would just like the guy who is 100% a tackle with Pro Bowl upside. I just don't see that Pro Bowl upside from Campbell on the outside, although I do see it if he were to kick into guard.
Yeah, he'll be a good tackle. He could be a great guard and maybe an all-pro guard, while Membu could be an all-pro tackle. And let's talk about it. I mean, the arm measurements from Senior Bowl to combine, now to pro days have all been different for all these prospects. It's like absurd to me the fact that the NFL can't have a uniform way to do the measurements. It's cost these guys money. But no matter what, it's coming out for Will Campbell. It's sub 80-inch wingspan. It's sub 79-inch wingspan. And the guys we've seen, like a Peter Skoronski with a shorter wingspan that played tackle, got bumped inside. A Gray Zabel was a tackle, will get bumped inside. That's the one thing I just can't get around. It's, we could argue arm length, and he's just, a few eighths of an inch off from 33-inch arms. Will Campbell would have to be such an outlier as an offensive tackle with that short of a wingspan, because your point, you want to touch him first. All right, if you don't have the long arms, you at least want to be tougher to get around, and that's what someone like an Ante Ursary brings to the tackle position.
I love me some Ante Ursary. He's kind of like, he's the day two Armand Membu for me. We're another guy who's got freaky athleticism for his size, really good on outside zone and pulling out in space, better than you'd expect for such a big guy. But also they can struggle against power in a weird way for mountains of men, but are really good on their edges. Again, they just kind of defy everything you'd expect if you were just looking at them and trying to guess what they can do. And when it comes to the measurables, they can matter, because the reason that teams care about any of this stuff is because it splits hairs. If you have two guys graded pretty similarly, they'll usually go to the guy with the better measurables in those cases, unless they just love someone's profile and some other aspects. But at the end of the day, the tape is the tape. If you are doing the work that you should be doing, you already knew that Will Campbell's arm lengths were significant. And it didn't really matter how short they were. If they were sub 33, yes, that could have cost him money, because that is so far of an outlier, because 33, even Dante Scarnecchia admitted it. Scott Peters admitted it. That's about the cutoff, unless the guy is just crazy talented in some other facets like a Will Campbell. But he's not a Gray Zabel. He's not a Peter Skoronski, because those guys, I think pro evaluators and even amateur scouts like myself know that they are guards at the next level. I think people know that Will Campbell can play tackle and stick there. It's just a matter of how good he's going to be. But I mean, we're listening to online discourse. I would be really stunned if teams were just blown away by the arm length, especially now that he's hit that 33, because it's not egregiously bad, but it's enough that, again, it just caps how much you think he can do at the next level in terms of hitting a ceiling. But he's better than a Skoronski, because his arms were so short that it was like you can't even consider it. So very different cases, I would say.
He's Connor Rogers of NBC Sports. You could also catch him hosting the NFL Stock Exchange as well. Connor, this is the busiest time of year for you, man. This is the Super Bowl combined with New Year's Eve, with Christmas, with Thanksgiving, with your wedding, I would say, your grandparents' birthdays, too, all tied in. I appreciate you taking the time, my man.
Oh, it's always great catching up with you guys, and you nailed it. I feel like with football season, I don't celebrate any of those holidays anymore, so it's a really good way to sum it up. We get like Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July. Okay, I'll have to say goodbye to my family now, but you guys know how much I love this time of year.
Exactly, and that's why I'm excited to bring you on and get talking with you. And we're going to start. Let's label this a little tackle talk, because that's where it sounds like it's going to start with the Patriots, and they can go so many avenues at 4. But as Mike Vrabel comes out and says, premium positions are in the first round. Starters at left tackle, I see them in the first round. He's saying, okay, edge, receiver, corner. It's really tackle or edge for them that's in play. Will Campbell, he's a guy it started with. We know the measurables, but what do you see in him as a prospect?
Well, he's such an interesting player, because my argument with Will Campbell is that I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft, and I don't think he's a tackle. So it's weird, right? Because there's a lot of praise for him. I think he would transition really smoothly to guard. He's a really, really good run blocker. He's somebody to me that you see how he pass protects with a flat back, where he could stall speed to power. He can kind of unlock power from his hips and anchor. But why he's not a tackle to me at the NFL level is that he'll get beat around that outside shoulder for lacking length, and then you'll see him start to set a little wider, and guys can cross his face. If anyone wants, you can turn on the South Carolina tape and see exactly what I'm talking about. And they had a really, really good front. Some of their pass rushers are in this year's draft. And I think when you look at Will Campbell, it comes down to wingspan, like 77 3/8 wingspan. That's 7th percentile all time at tackle. So we're talking about a massive, massive outlier. It doesn't mean he's not a great prospect, because he is, but you can kind of go back to maybe what Peter Skoronski went through a couple of years ago, where when Tennessee took him, they said, we're not even going to give him a look at tackle. And maybe Campbell gets a look at tackle, where I think he'd survive there, but I want a franchise left tackle with a top 5 pick. I want a guy that could be one of the best tackles, best blindside protectors in the league for years to come. I think Campbell has way more upside at guard.
Yeah, and I like that you point that out. It's the thing. I don't want someone that can survive. I want someone that thrives and sticks at that spot. For my talking with the Patriots right-handed quarterback. Okay, so Armand Membu, Josh Simmons. To me, those are the next two best tackles. I know your big boards are coming out as well, but sticking with those two, I feel like it makes sense as those are top three names and could be in the Patriots range. What do you see with Membu? Obviously, just turned 21, is a right tackle, but athletic. And Josh Simmons, of course, a left tackle, but coming off that torn patellar.
Membu, really explosive lower half. You don't see a lot of guys that play at 330 pounds, and everything in the lower half is that explosive. It's smooth. He can recover because he's such a good athlete, where in the first phase of the rep, a guy kind of surprises him with a move, but okay, I could redirect my hands and kind of be in sync with my lower half at the same time. You watch him in the run game. You turn on the tape against Oklahoma. It's just fun to watch him dump defenders with that strength. I still think he's learning how to use the lower half to anchor. Sometimes he'll get knocked back a little bit towards the pocket, but he's such a naturally strong guy that I feel like, and he's young too. He's going to be 21-year-old rookie. So you feel like that's only going to get better. It's on the right trajectory, but he played right tackle and he was a guard recruit. So is he going to be, for such a young player, ready to be thrown into the fire on the left side, or do you keep him comfortable on the right side? If I was taking Membu, I would want him to be comfortable on the right side. Now, I know New England did the right thing. They went out there and got a veteran in Morgan Moses, who Moses is still playing really, really good football. You just got to make sure his body doesn't break down throughout the season at this age. So it's going to be fascinating to see what is valued with Membu in terms of being maybe a right tackle only, or if teams project him bigger than that. When you look at Josh Simmons, this is somebody that had the chance to challenge to be the first tackle taken in the draft, but the injury was a significant one. He tore some ligaments in that knee. It's been a long road back. He's somebody that he played the softer part of Ohio State's schedule throughout those first 5 or 6 games. Looked phenomenal. Really wasn't challenged at all because he's got the size. He's got the athleticism, his movement skills to mirror pass rushers. You can get him working in outside zone where he can climb, he could pull. So you look at Simmons, teams are going to know more about the medicals than the general public and where they feel comfortable taking him, and how far he falls will kind of tell you how they feel about that. And then you also have to kind of say, okay, would he be able to keep up that level of play when the schedule got a little tougher and he faced some NFL caliber pass rushers? So I think Simmons is going to be more of a back end of round 1, top of the second round pick. I think Membu is going to be gone in the first 10 picks of this draft easily.
Okay, we talked Membu, we talked Campbell, we talked Simmons. I'm not hearing any Kelvin Banks. Now, I get it. At 4, it's a little rich. But if this team trades back, and there's still a scenario that Kelvin Banks ends up a Patriot. I remember talking to George and others when this stuff first came out and we started talking mock drafts. He was like a top 10 pick. Why the slide for him? And also, can you evaluate him in terms of if the Patriots do trade back and possibly get him later, what kind of player they would get in a Kelvin Banks?
Well, I love that you brought him up because I'm asking the same questions. I have him as the 13th overall player in the draft and the second tackle, only behind Membu, and it just doesn't feel like it's trending that way in the mock drafts with Banks. And nothing changed. This is somebody that he started at left tackle since his freshman season for Texas. He was playing left tackle for Texas, ages 18 to 20 years old. That is a remarkable feat when you look at the high level he was doing it at. He's a good athlete. He's got long enough arms. He's really smart. He's a hard worker. You watch him in the run game, it's a little Jekyll and Hyde. The highs are amazing. He could detonate defenders when his hands land correct. But I said this to him at the combine. I said, sometimes you got to dial it in, and you have those whiffs, and he's open to that. Like, there are a lot of whiffs on tape where you got to play controlled as well. And when you're such a good athlete at that size, that's going to happen. It's like you almost get too excited to absolutely plant someone that's 100 pounds or 70 pounds lighter than you. So I think Banks has put out really good pass protection tape. I don't know if this is a case of the league being quiet on him because somebody wants to take him higher than where he's projected to go. Like, would a Miami take him at 13? Would a Dallas take him at 12? Would he go even earlier than that? You look at New Orleans taking Fuanga last year. Would they say, we're going to double down on offensive line and go back to that well? And even the Jets at 7, although I don't think that's going to happen. But I think Banks has been overlooked throughout this process, which is kind of remarkable when you look at how young he is, the battle-tested nature of his game. And if New England, which I do think they're going to be answering those phones, I think we all feel that way to say, hey, is there a trade for us that makes a lot of sense? If New England moved back a handful of spots and Banks is still on the board with Membu and Campbell already gone, that's not the same level of downgrade to me that everybody else is making it out to be.
Yeah, that's a guy that, again, thrived left tackle spot in the SEC, and especially you touch on it, his young age, how athletic he is, long. He has the frame you want for a left tackle. So you bring it up of, hey, maybe people are being quiet. They want to reach on him, don't want the kickback that could come with that. But you also float out that the Pats could trade back. What makes sense to you of what happens at 4? We know what's happening 1 through 3. What would make sense to you if you're drafting for the Patriots and you're on the clock, pick up the phone or stick and pick at 4?
I would love to get out of this pick if I can, because it's a plateauing of the talent, right? Yeah. We, the consensus is that Carter and Travis Hunter are the best players in the draft, and they're kind of near a category of their own. The player from a talent perspective that I could talk myself into for New England at 4, but I don't think it's a dire need anymore, was Mason Graham. I think Mason Graham is a really good player. He's a stout run defender. He's a power pass rusher. But New England, I'm not worried about New England's interior of their defensive line. Now, they know more about where Barmar's at than us, but they've spent money on this group. And I think Vrabel can take depth defensive linemen later in this draft and develop them, where I don't think New England's a team that needs to take Graham at 4. So you look at it, if I like Ted McMillan a lot, and I'm confused why people have kind of soured on him as the best receiver in this draft if you take into account that Hunter isn't a full-time receiver. If you did, I'd say Hunter is the best receiver in this draft. So if you're New England, do you get out of 4, and is there a team that wants to come up? Now, the question is, what do they want to come up for? Is it Mason Graham? Is it Tyler Warren? The question, is it Armand Membu as well? If a team thinks they need a right tackle, say San Francisco wanted to come up from 11 and get a player like Armand Membu at 4, and New England goes back to 11. Is that a scenario where we talked about Kelvin Banks there? That makes sense. Do you still take Ted McMillan because he complements what Stephon Diggs does? You need a ball winner, right? You need somebody that's going to actually help Drake May on those contested catch situations as well. Or is that too early? I don't think it's early for McMillan. I think it'd be a really, really good fit. Do you honestly sit there and go, we just have the board a certain way, we think a Jaylen Walker or a Tyler Warren is warranted in this spot as one of the best players in the draft? I have hesitations with Walker because I just don't know what he fully is. And then with Warren, I know he's a great player, but do you need to take a tight end in the top 5? It feels unlikely that that's kind of where the league is trending, as great as he is. So that's why I come back to a trade making the most sense for New England every time.
Man, I have so many follow-ups. George, you got to give me a floor for a second. I want to talk Ted McMillan, but let me go back. Because as you started talking about trade partners and who could be interested at 4, you named all these players. I didn't hear Shedeur Sanders. What the hell's going on here, Connor? I mean, it is lying season.
Yeah, it is.
But I'm seeing mocks where, like, Shedeur's going to the Steelers in the 20s. Like, is no one in love with this kid enough to move up to 4 to get him? He continues to slide, or is this lying season?
It'll be a really fascinating draft. It is lying season, and we're sitting there, and New England traded, and New Orleans came up from 9 to get Shedeur Sanders or whatever it may be. Right. That would be electric entertainment.
I'd love it.
I would be really surprised. Wow. I just look at it, just feels like with Shedeur, it's come a little full circle. Now, to be fair, we were talking about Shedeur months ago. The Raiders at 6. They went out and got Geno Smith for a good price. They paid a 3rd-round pick to go get Geno Smith. Geno's a good player in this league and comfortable with Pete Carroll. So that took away a really, really big landing spot. The Giants were in desperation mode, and I don't love Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, but it at least gave them somebody that can play, where I think the Giants want to get a premium player at 3, and I think they want to come back into round 1 for a player like Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart, whoever it may be. Because I heard this with the Giants last year. I heard with the Giants last year that they were a team that they liked some of those quarterbacks that were taken, not in the top 3, but they wanted Malik Neighbors. And they said, if one of those guys fell, can we come back in? None of them fell. They all went in the top 12, so it wasn't even close. So maybe that's a strategy that they're comfortable with. But if I had to predict right now, New Orleans is the wild card because this Derek Carr injury came out of nowhere, and they are looking to be in shambles right now. And if they love Shedeur, take Shedeur. Like, why wouldn't you take him if you love him and you need a quarterback? But outside of that, guys, there's just not the landing spots. That's the problem. So I think it's more likely a team trades back into round 1 to take Shedeur. I don't think Jackson Dart is a lock to go in the 1st round, like a lot of people have been saying either. Okay. I just think teams don't love this quarterback class, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, I understand why. I want to ask, let's go back to Ted McMillan. So I saw an article you did of player comps. Everything I keep hearing about Ted McMillan is Drake London, Drake London, Drake London. You had a different perspective. Courtland Sutton. Why that and not a Drake London? Can you explain to me?
Yeah, I think the body types are very, very similar. I think the ability to win the ball with positioning and tracking and controlling their bodies and going above the rim is very similar. I think that Sutton had better agility than he got credit for. And I think that's a problem with McMillan right now. When you watch him after the catch on this year's tape, he can make people miss. He could set people up with power. I think he's shifty in his routes for his size. I think London was a pretty unique prospect, and it's almost like people are forgetting how good of a prospect he was. And let's not forget, until this year, he had nothing at quarterback in the NFL. So people kind of forgot about him when, what, do you want the guy to have 1,400 yards with Desmond Ridder? So it was just a little rich for my blood to compare him to Drake London. I think Sutton is a really good player in this league. He had some bad injury luck, but I think McMillan is much more similar to him, to the reach comparison is what I would call a Drake London comp.
Yeah, and I get that. What I like with Tet, he has that volleyball background, and that's how he plays. Times jump balls perfectly, snatches a ball out of the air.
Yep.
And it's just, again, it's with, you said it, the plateau of the draft is after pick 3. And that's where Tet is a wide receiver 1, but it's too rich to say take him out of 4. But in the trade back scenarios, you take a Tet at, say, 9. Trade back into the first and get that offensive tackle. It makes sense. But you also brought up Jaylen Walker. And like you said, I don't know where to place him. I think he's better at edge. But at 6'1", it's tough to predict that with the guy. What do you see in a Jaylen Walker when you're scouting him? And if you can make the comp for him, who do you compare him to?
Yeah, you don't get a lot of players like this, to be honest with you, that he doesn't have the prototypical length to be an edge defender. And then I don't really think he has the instincts right now to be an off-ball linebacker, but he's physical. He plays with violence. He does have pass rush ability. He can get off the ball. He's got heavy hands for his size. So the problem is the guys in previous years that we've done this with, that we like them as weapon linebackers in the middle of the field, haven't really panned out the way you hope all the time over the years. So Walker, I think the instincts will eventually catch up, that his off-ball ability on first and second downs will be fine. But will he ever be that dynamic pass rusher on the passing downs to take over is where I have some reservations of why I don't think he's a top 10 pick. I love the spirit he plays with. Once again, I love the violence he plays with. I think he plays fast, and you always want speed in your front seven, whether it's guys with range to the sideline that can eliminate the flats for those dump offs and swing passes to running backs, and also the timing as a blitzer as well. But does that warrant a top 10 pick in the NFL? In my eyes, that's a bit of a reach, and why it wouldn't be shocked if it happens, because I think teams like him. Carolina at 8 is kind of where it looks like things could be heading. But once again, it's just rich for my blood for New England at 4.
Yeah, and that's a guy that's caught steam at 4 for the Patriots, and that's coming from people that know people inside that building, but that's where the antenna goes up. Undersized, in between, it's the same thing as a Will Campbell. All right, if you don't want a Will at 4 because you're not sure where he lands,
that's
he lands to be a guard, what would you do with a Jaylen Walker? So sticking with the edge then, we know edge 1 is Abdul Carter. Who's the number 2 guy in this draft for you?
I think far and away it's Mike Green from Marshall.
Oh,
I think
like
Green,
him, George.
I think Green is closer to Carter than Green is closer to the next guy. And it's just, this is, what's funny is the comp for him I had was Harold Landry, who Mike Vrabel knows a thing or two about. Yeah. So when you look at Mike Green, now 17 sacks, and the level of competition at times wasn't always great, but he also had really good tape against Ohio State. He hit a spin move against Ohio State for a sack that was just tremendous. He's got elite agilities. You look at the 6.853 cone, the 4.25 shuttle. Like, those are metrics that translate for a pass rusher because he can win on an island. He's agile. He's got a big-time wrestling background where you see the heavy hands. He's way better against the run than anyone gives him credit for because he's got such good grip strength to get off of blocks, and he's got a variety of moves. He understands just how to win with a variety of moves. He can counter move. He's so fast off the ball that he often doesn't have to because he's already dictating how the rep's going to go. But if a tackle that's more explosive kind of matches him, he has a counter move with his hands. You're talking about a 95th percentile pass rush win percentage. So he was just one of the most consistent disruptors in the country. But it's not the argument like a Michael Williams or Shamar Stewart where he didn't finish plays. He had 17 sacks. So he was disrupting and finishing plays because of that pursuit speed. And then the upper and lower half are just always working together. When you can generate power from your lower half, but also carry it into your hands, that's how you're going to be NFL offensive tackles. So I think Mike Green is a really, really good prospect and a future double-digit sack kind of a guy.
Gosh, I hate when you and George agree. It just drives me nuts. This guy, George, has been talking about Mike Green forever. Let me ask you this. because I'm stuck on wide receivers. I'm stuck on playmakers. I asked you about Ted McMillan. As you look later in this draft, names like Luther Burden, who, by the way, you compared to Brandon Ayuk. I thought that was interesting. Noel, Higgins. Who are some of the later wide receivers fit-wise, Connor, that you think make a lot of sense for New England? Because you know they're going to address it at some point in this draft, early or late or both.
Yeah, I'd like to see somebody with ball skills in this offense, right?
Yeah,
Somebody that can be a little bit more physical against corners. Trey Harris comes to mind out of Ole Miss. I think Trey just has a knack for finding the ball, body positioning, being physical. He's a very, very physical blocker as well. They'd have him crack down on linebackers and ends. He's got a little bit of a different DNA that New England probably needs to add to that wide receiver room at some point. You need size at wide receiver. You can't have guys clogging the slot all the time. And that's why I look at Jaden Higgins as well. Maybe he's on the higher end of that because it feels like Higgins is trending towards being a top 50 pick with his athleticism, size, and production. He's played inside and outside as well. Jack Besh might have the best hands in the draft. So if you just want that target that can go across the middle of the field, play at about 220 pounds with his tight end background before moving to wide receiver, that would just be that safety blanket kind of valve for Drake May. You know, Elikayo Manor, I have some questions about because he plays in a phone booth all the time, and it's a dangerous way to live at the NFL level when you're not creating separation, but you're just bodying people. But, man, you talk about the DNA that Mike Vrabel likes. Once again, one of the best blockers in this draft, physical after the catch, physical at the catch point as well. You know, if you want to go a little deeper than all that, though, Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas gets no love, no buzz. Size, tested well, plays with an edge. I think he plucks the ball away from his body consistently, so the hands are going to translate to the next level. I don't understand why nobody talks about this guy. He had over 1,000 yards in the SEC. He was really productive. He's a bigger wide receiver, so you believe you could play him on the perimeter, which he did play on the perimeter in that offense. He's super, super underrated and one of my day 3 favorites.
I love that. Andrew Armstrong, not on my radar at all. Now, again, see, this is what you do. We're just about a week out. I think Hayes in the barn. I know it's not for you. And then I'm like, all right, let me go check out Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas.
Watch Andrew Armstrong and let me know what you think. You got a full week here.
I will. I mean, I'll check. Exactly. We still got time. And we talk about the deep late receivers. But there's also the talks of, again, and I just think of Patriots that try to play every scenario on the trade back. Ashton Ginty's not realistic where the state of this offensive line is, but a Tyler Warren could make sense. Ooh. And again, you accrue picks, trade back into the first, maybe move up in the second. It could be an Ursary. Josh Connolly would see. What is Tyler Warren to you? Like, what range does it make sense to take a tight end at? What part of the draft? And how do you see him translating to the next level as a guy that's so physically dominant?
Well, every draft is different, right? Because last year, Brock Bowers would be a lock for this pick at 4 with his talent.
Yeah.
But we had a quarterback, wide receiver, offensive tackle rich draft that Bowers fell because of that. But this draft is not as good as last year's. And it has depth, it has starters, but it doesn't have star talent. And Brock Bowers was a star as a prospect and quickly a star in the NFL. I don't think Warren is as good of a prospect as Bowers, but I think he should be drafted earlier than Bowers because of the class he ended up in. Sometimes that's the luck of the draw. So the combo for Warren, I think the door opens at 4 just because I think he's the 6th best player in the draft. So if you're one of the best players in the draft, you should be in play at 4 for New England, 5 for Jacksonville. The Jets at 7 are going to be all over him, obviously. And then you look at maybe the Bears at 10. And the absolute basement for him is the Colts. There's just no way he makes it by the Colts. I don't think he's even in the conversation there, though, because, it reminds me, I was doing a real deep dive the other night. I was watching when Jeremy Shockey was on the Giants, and then I watched when Jeremy Shockey was drafted out of Miami on the draft broadcast. They are the same exact player. This is like time traveling here. And it's not just the hair. It's the ability, once again, to play on the line of scrimmage, get off the line of scrimmage with speed, and challenge the seam, play above the rim, take hits, run through people. Obviously, they can hold their own on the line of scrimmage, really, as that not a 6th offensive lineman, but a adequate, capable blocker in the zone game, in the downhill game as well, with those heavy hands. Warren is just a really, really good talent that comes pro-ready, former high school quarterback. That's the kind of athlete we're talking about here at the tight end position. He's going to play at 260, so you love to see that as well. So, I mean, if somebody took him at 4 or 5, you don't kill him just because they took a tight end. He's one of the best players in the draft, and I think that's why he warrants that top 10 selection.
And this is an offense that needs weapons. Okay, so talk Tyler Warren there. Yeah. Colston Loveland. What do you see in him?
Loveland's really good. Another guy like Besh, in the category of best hands in the draft. He's a better route runner than Warren when they play him off the line of scrimmage in that F mold to kind of be a power slot. He's pretty shifty. He can, once again, climb the ladder. I think his best skill is honestly improvising when the play is extended, and Drake May's really good at that. Quarterback's running around. You need to flow with the quarterback. You need to be physical, and you need to kind of be your quarterback's best friend. I think Loveland's phenomenal at that. Better blocker than given credit for, especially in an athletic scheme that kind of gets him on the move and generates some momentum. Just want to see him healthy. Wasn't healthy this year. Had the shoulder at the combine where, his playing weight's probably 255, and it was a little lower than that. So you just want Loveland to be healthy and consistently on the field. And obviously another guy that's one of the best players in the draft. I have him 15th overall.
Shout out to those guys. Also, make sure to tune in to Nesson Nation this Thursday.
Yes.
We'll have the Foxborough Rush on the clock, a special live 2-hour NFL draft special.
Yep.
During the first round on Thursday night from 8 to 9, we'll be on Nesson Nation. From 9 on, once Woosocks game is over, we'll be on Nesson. And we got a live stream on Nesson's YouTube channel. No commercial breaks there. We'll be taking your comments live as well. Travis, myself, Casey Hudson will be on the show with us too. And we'll have some of those guys joining as well, giving their takes on the prospects.
Man, the draft has come a long way. I still remember as a young lad watching the draft on 2 days, a Saturday and a Sunday. I would just lock myself in my parents' basement, tell my parents, don't take any calls from me on the landline. No calls. I'm watching the draft. Dialed in.
Young Travis with hair locked up in the base. I remember it was 2 days. Mine is 2014. I was there when I was interning for Westwood One Radio.
Yep.
Draft is all wrapped up. Teddy Bridgewater, 32nd overall pick. It was in Rockefeller Center. Last pick. We're breaking down. He does the interview with Scott Graham.
Come on.
And Teddy gets up out of nowhere. Ray Lewis runs in.
Come on.
Gives him a big hug. And I'm like, what? Where?
Wow.
It was cool. It was empty. I feel like I was one of like 15 people that witnessed that. And then Ray Lewis ran off.
Well, that was a South Florida connection,
Exactly.
I'm sure. Yeah, wow.
Teddy,
That's incredible.
32nd overall, taken by the Vikings. So it's just something I won't forget.
Yeah.
I was like, that was
Turned out
awesome.
to be a really good player, too.
It did. It did. And Ray Lewis connected with him. He's Travis Thomas. I'm George Balekji. This was Boston. Has entered the chat. Appreciate you guys making us a part of your day. Remember, Thursday night, NFL Draft Special on Nesson Nation, Nesson's YouTube, and on Nesson. Check us out then.